We don't have basic health literacy. Social media misinformation is running rampant. And we heard from Dr. Emily Fender at our launch event that, unfortunately, a lot of this misinformation is actually coming from doctors themselves. Or are they posing as doctors? We don't know. Not only that, but with evidence-based guidelines for women being challenged, women's research being cut, this leaves us so confused about what and whom to trust. So this is why we're building generational wealth, GenWell. Welcome to the Wealth Podcast, Off With Your Coat, a podcast on women's health and wellness where we flip the script and ditch the surface level chatter. We need to ask the real questions. Let's get back to storytelling and back to basics to help us uncover how to set ourselves up for true health and wellness and pass it on. I'm Cat Duff, founder of GenWell, the women's health advocacy brand building wealth, the intersection of health and wellness. Some days it's me and a doctor, coat off, talking about what really matters. No fluff, no filters. Other days it's East meets West, trading tools, not punches, to help move women's health forward. We're building generational wealth. Come with us. Coats off, let's go. Hi, ladies. Happy Wednesday. I figured we are now 4 episodes into the Off With Your Coat podcast, and now is the time to do a proper introduction of myself and the GenWell brand. We actually just had our hard launch here in Boston, and it was freaking fantastic. The vibes were immaculate. The women were just having incredible conversations, and there was so much validation that now is the time for us to connect on women's health and help it progress forward. So I am so grateful that you are here, and I am pumped to connect today. So a little bit about me. I am the founder and CEO of GenWell, which is our women's health advocacy brand. You can follow at GenWell Official. I am an elder millennial. I have 2 babies, a boy and a girl. I live here in the city of Boston, although my husband is slowly trying to pull me out to the suburbs. I'm huge into food. I would definitely consider myself a foodie. I love dancing. I grew up dancing, grew up doing sports. So I've always been active, always sort of had one foot into the wellness space. And I think in the last 10 years, that's really when I have dove into not just wellness for myself, but for my partner, for my family, et cetera. Always sort of that trying to lend some guidance to friends without being too prescriptive, per se. I've worked in media and advertising for the last 15 years at some of the world's best brands, everything from Vogue to Architectural Digest. And I love brands. I love storytelling. And I would say that my superpower is connection. I think I just love getting like-minded people together to connect on different subjects, to make friends, to have those connections in different areas of the world and the country. And one of my best friends would even say, I'm always leaving the women's restroom with someone's number. So if that's over a lipstick or what have you, I think that as women, we don't connect enough. And that's sort of what led me to originate GenWell and what I think is missing with women in general. So off with your coat, looking to myself, what's one health challenge or experience that surprised me as a woman? Diving right in, especially it is October, it's Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. My heart goes out to all of the women who have had experienced a loss, who know someone that has experienced a loss. No matter how far along you are, it is heartbreaking. And so I feel for you. I empathize with you. Just a trigger warning as I want to share my experience. I think lived experience is a huge part of the brand that I'm building. And so I wanted to share one of my stories with you that I was very surprised by. Between my son and my daughter, I experienced 2 miscarriages. The first was at 12 weeks. I remember going in by myself. The ultrasound technician spent, I would say, more time than usual or what I had been used to with my first pregnancy. And unfortunately, it was a man who came in and he just said, "I'm really sorry, but your pregnancy is not viable." And this is after hearing the heartbeat, after seeing the fetus. And I didn't even cry. I just sort of sat there still, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, who are you to tell me that? I feel like I had a range of emotions of anger, sadness, confusion, but really what was coming to mind the most was just doubtfulness. I didn't believe that he was right, and so I didn't know how to get to the right answer or to understand what was actually happening. And so something about a partial molar pregnancy, which also, why are you telling me these details when you can't give me any information outside of that? He was like, "Well, you need to talk to your doctor. You'll have to have a DNC." And that was kind of it. He walked out. There was no emotion behind what he was saying. And I just remember bursting into tears, almost having a panic attack because it was at 12 weeks. We were so excited. And I was just sort of bereft of any information that could be useful to me in that moment to try to make sense of it all. And from there, I called my husband. I remember being in the car and just like losing it on the phone. And I got home. I called my OB. She had said, okay, a partial molar pregnancy, this happens in, 1 out of 1,000 pregnancies. It's very rare. It is when basically there are 69 chromosomes instead of 46. So it could have been like 2 sperm, 1 egg. But I never heard of this before. It was a scenario where you're now dealing with the miscarriage at hand that is possibly impending. And then also not having any fucking clue what they're talking about. And so my OB had no direction. She sort of said, there hasn't been much research on this. There isn't, she sent me the up-to-date link where I can see the most recent research, which wasn't much. So then I contacted my OB in New York. She hadn't seen it in the last 5 years. And so I was just sort of at a loss. So all I wanted was some confirmation that the baby would be okay. And no one could tell me that. So um, unfortunately, I ended up miscarrying on Christmas Day. I remember trying to hold it together for my son, and uh, it was extremely tough and had to get a DNC that Monday. My doctor had told me that I have to get my HCG levels down to 0 because there is a certain disease that can come of a partial molar or a full molar miscarriage where you can develop these malignant cells. And so you can't try to have a baby again until that happens. And if you've tried to get pregnant, if someone's telling you you have to wait, it is just soul crushing, especially after a loss. So I tried to tap into all of my resources. I was very afraid of obviously having any sort of malignancy in my body, but still couldn't find any information outside of Dr. Google to help me. And so I ended up reaching out to my naturopath who I'd worked with over the years for preventative medicine. And she had let me know that there is a liver detox that she had offered to some women because your liver obviously has a big role to play with your hormones. And she was like, you know what? It's no harm, no foul. It is just a set of tinctures to help your body get rid of the remaining HCG. And my doctors had told me it could take 6 months up to a year to get that level down. And with doing the liver detox, it actually took 1 month. I was processing the loss of the pregnancy. And on the other hand, I felt really empowered by having not just one perspective or one point of view on my health. It just took one element of the stress out to feel like I had a village of people around me where I could go. And, if someone didn't have the answer, I could look to someone else who still had my back. That was absolutely incredible in that moment. And the guidance in that specific scenario, had I not had that sort of toddler mentality of why is this happening? I wouldn't have, been able to try again to have a baby or to figure out what was actually wrong and possibly prevent something from happening, which in this case you actually can't. But um, it just sort of solidified my thought process behind Gen Well in that we need to talk to one another. We need to share our stories. We can't be sitting in silence and suffering in silence around miscarriage, around shameful things like if it were HPV or sexually transmitted diseases. Like, we need to get over that. We need to be there for one another and we need to connect. And I just feel like we need to be curious. We need to help women as best as we can through these lived experiences. And that brings me to the why behind GenWell. We have always been healers, women. We have always been storytellers. We wrote the first medical texts. And in medieval times, we had these secret societies where women were getting together in person to talk about their cycles, their hormones, to talk about what they were making in their apothecary to help with certain things. That deep sharing of lived experience, we are so far from that. And we need to get back to basics. I mean, I hate to sound on the nose. It is spooky season. I am in Massachusetts, but the last time we were actually doing that, we were burned at the stake and hung. So if we look at current times, what in the Handmaid's Tale is actually going on? I will tell you, it is not good. We are mistrusting of one another. We are gaslighting one another. We are not sharing our experiences. And going back to my story about miscarriage, think about how much better equipped we could be for life experiences and life stages if we knew more about that. If it's not just from one point of view, from the scientific aspect, from the evidence-based aspect, but from that lived experience. Bringing science together with lived experience could be absolutely incredible. And that's what we're trying to do at GenWell. So GenWell was born out of necessity for me, for all women. I remember it was mid-pandemic in New York City. My son was just born. I recall very vividly sitting outside at dinner in this makeshift restaurant in New York City with my husband and my newborn son, and just recounting to my husband, or I guess venting to him about my postpartum experience, how I had mastitis and no one had ever told me about mastitis. I thought I had COVID at the time because I had no idea that you would have these chills and fever, and it felt like knives were going into my nipples. And uh, it was just such a wild experience. So from that to you have this major physical trauma, and it's fantastic that your baby can get seen and have consistent care, but who's actually looking after you? Who's taking care of you and making sure that your pelvic floor is healed, that you are not having postpartum depression? I mean, they literally slide that damn piece of paper over to you at the pediatrician, expecting you to be able to answer questions when you are in this postpartum fog of, do you feel like you want to hurt yourself, or do you feel depressed or anxious? Yes, I feel anxious. I just had a baby. I mean, how are you supposed to use this archaic tool to guide someone's care for you? It is just ass backward. And then on top of it, you get to your 6-week appointment and they're like, woohoo, all clear. Now you can have sex. What? Yeah. Okay, great. Let me get right on that. I just began to think how little I actually know about my body. And I feel like I felt like that at every stage. I mean, I don't remember having education on my body or my cycle when I was younger, let alone like trying to throw a tampon in. I really started to go on this journey of incorporating Eastern and Western medicine, and that helped me to start to understand my body better, which I think is really useful for any person, but any woman specifically. But something was still missing. It's the female connection and our intuition, which is so hard to tap into. So by the time my daughter was born in 2024, I had this visceral need to protect her and her body, not only to help her understand her body, but to give her the tools to be the CEO of her own health. We don't have basic health literacy. Social media misinformation is running rampant. And we heard from Dr. Emily Fender at our launch event that unfortunately, a lot of this misinformation is actually coming from doctors themselves. Or are they posing as doctors? We don't know. So, not only that, but with evidence-based guidelines for women being challenged, women's research being cut, this leaves us so confused about what and whom to trust. So this is why we're building generational wealth, Genwell. Get it? We have health over here, which can be scary. It can be clinical. It is sometimes gaslighting and confusing. And then you have wellness, which is like the shiny object over here, where longevity plays a part, where there's no regulation and conflicting advice, as well as grifting. Wealth is the blending of modern science and ancestral healing in the pursuit of research and lived experience that can marry together. We don't need to be divisive. We can bring everything together so that we have the tools to make informed decisions about our health. And it doesn't have to be dry, it doesn't have to be clinical, but it can be fun and it can be interesting. We just need to get curious. It's about truth, balance, and connection. And I say balance because everything that we're being fed right now is black or white. There's no middle. Everything is a one-size-fits-all approach. They're not understanding of our nuance. We don't know our own nuances and our bio-individuality. And so we're just being sold a bill of goods. And, my background being in media and advertising, we always remarket and repackage things, right? We had a concept years ago. Let's repackage it. Let's reframe it and sell it again in a different way. That's what's happening in women's health right now, in wellness. Longevity, for example. It's always been around. Look at, medical texts and doctors that were putting out information and thought leaders 50 years ago. There's not a lot of newness to this information, but it's repackaged, it's remarketed. And for us specifically, we are so vulnerable to that marketing. And so the first aspect of Genwell is called the Wealth Collective. It is looking for drilling down on brands, resources, individuals that are not preying on women's vulnerabilities. So we are sort of scraping through brands that are offering solutions to us that are not looking at the one size fits all, that are actually trying to help women and not hinder our health and wellness. So the Wealth Collective, it's meant to try on. It's not meant to be something where we are influencing you to buy something and this is going to solve all your problems. This is going to heal your hormones. This is going to do all the things. No, it's meant to say, like, these are things that we recommend. Try them on, see if they work for you as an individual. And if not, move on. There are things that we know from the get are not preying on you, that are not speaking to you in specific marketing language or omitting ingredients, for example, like fragrance. We just want to help you sift through the bullshit, sift through the noise. So with that also, we do have a balance of products. Like I love a dirty martini, but you can't wear shoes in my house, and I use all natural cleaning products. And I think that there is a balance in life. So our launch event, we had a partner called Inspiro Tequila for women that choose to drink. We also had a free wine that was alcohol removed sparkling brut, which was fantastic. And so I think women can still make a choice. If you want to have alcohol, have alcohol. If you don't want to have alcohol, that's amazing. Do what makes you feel good. And we shouldn't judge one another for that. Like, please stop judging other women for what they're doing, putting in and on their bodies. Let them do it. Just go with it. Please. So, and back to the Inspiro tequila, for example, they're additive free and it is delicious. So if you are into alcohol and you like to let loose a little bit, that one is for you. So in addition to the Wealth Collective, we obviously have our Off with the Quote podcast. We are super pumped about the array of guests that we have for the remainder of the year and for 2026. So do comment here if there are any guests that you want us to have on the pod. And we are excited to start to get into our dialogue, not a debate aspect of the pod, where we look at one women's health topic, two sides of the street. So think Eastern versus Western medicine, but it's a dialogue, not a debate. So encouraging women to connect and learn from one another and also empower us to have more information versus one point of view. The third pillar I am so psyched for. In 2026, we are launching FEM, which is our supper club, sort of modeled off of those secret societies that women used to have. It's bringing us back together in conversation with practitioners on both the traditional side of medicine, but also the natural side. So we can have these thematic dinners based on a women's health topic or life stage, such as fertility, perimenopause, just general social media misinformation. And this is meant to bring us back to basics, to marry lived experience and clinical expertise, and to have some takeaways to deliver to our greater community. I am so excited to get people together. The start will be in Boston, and then we'll be unveiling it across the country. So stay tuned for that. So I typically like to do a little quick fire round. So if I were to answer these questions, what's one wellness trend you found on social media that you actually have leaned into? Not leaned into, but I tried cycle syncing just as a test a couple of months back, and it 100% did not work for me. And I think I've mentioned it before, but I have PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is like the 10 days leading up to your period. You have massive anxiety, like nothing you've ever experienced in terms of PMS. And I tried to do more of like the lower key stretching Pilates during that time in the luteal phase, and it did not work. It made my anxiety worse. And what I found was helpful was actually like keeping up with my harder core workouts, if you will. So boxing, more strenuous workouts, things that I know are going to clear my mind. And I need to do it first thing in the morning. So it actually helped me in a way to learn my cycle in a way that I think it's not intending to. But again, it's sort of a trial and error. So I think that was good. Favorite personal care product or fashion brand? I will say both. I love fashion and I love anything makeup, skincare, etc. So face, I would say Primally Pure antioxidant balm I'm loving right now. Um, it is supposed to be more potent than vitamin C and it is a little bit thicker. It does have beef tallow, so do not come at me for that. I don't know why everyone is so agitated by beef tallow, but hey, if it works for your skin, great. My skin seems to love it. So cool. Fashion, I'm loving Zimmerman and Veronica Beard. I also just love Zara. You just, for myself, for my kids. Um, the last thing you Googled, how long does it actually take for your postpartum hair to grow back? I thought about styling it for you all today to do some sort of Bridgerton bangs, but I don't know if we're into that look. Podcast, book, or resource that you'd like to recommend to women? Well, we mentioned it on the podcast with Dr. Emily Fender, but Google Scholar to help to validate some of those doctors that you're looking at to see if they're active in current research, especially in their field. And so I would say that is a good resource. And I love the book Good Energy by Casey and Callie Means. I think it's really an interesting look into mitochondrial health. It can get heavy at times, but overall, I think a really interesting read. And I just wanted to give you guys three sort of starting points for women's health that I've learned along the way, especially in marrying Eastern and Western medicine. And I think the first for today is slowly get rid of things that could be affecting your health. And so for us, I would say fragrance and plastics in your home. So anything that you have, like cooking wise, Tupperware, no, thank you. We're over it. We're out. Fragrance, there's hidden fragrances in just about everything. So from your candles to your cleaning products, if there is a synthetic fragrance, it is disrupting your hormones. So, I can do a whole podcast episode on that and we can dive in, but those are two huge things that I think can start to help you to create a healthy baseline in your home for you and your family. The second is try to create that village of practitioners around you. So have only trusted voices in your corner. And again, if that is traditional medicine and you have your slew of people, great. I would highly recommend exploring other modalities. And that's what you'll start to see from the Wealth Collective is offering these additional options for you to supplement your care so that you always have multiple points of view to refer to. Um, so make sure you have that. It doesn't have to be just an OB and a PCP, but maybe you have an acupuncturist, maybe you have a naturopath, maybe you have a therapist or a psychiatrist or somatic therapist. So having that group of people where you can rely on them for thoughtful, collaborative care is key. And the last is I would encourage you in this month to get curious about one thing in your life. If it's your cycle, if it's your fertility, if it is your exercise or training regimen, and really drill down. Be curious, be the squeaky wheel. Again, go back to that toddler mentality and ask why. Where do you need help? Where do you need support? What can you share with your friends to maybe help them on their health and wellness journey? This will allow you to start to process what you're feeling in your body, where you need the help and support, and start to get that storytelling going again. I am so excited for you guys to be on this journey together with Genwell. And I'll just wrap it up in saying, you can follow us on Instagram at Genwell Official, GenWellOffiCial. You can obviously listen to us here. Apple Podcast is coming soon, as well as YouTube. And look out for all of our announcements for the upcoming Supper Club. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.